Today I've got an extraordinary guest on the show, Brett Russell, who is the Director of Operations for Golden Mill, which is a very successful high-volume food hall in Golden, Colorado. Brett is going to share with us today his process and roadmap transitioning into an existing business on how he has been able to impact the culture of the organization and just produce some incredible results. His process starts with people, and he's going to give us some very specific tools and strategies that he's been able to use in this instance, and in addition to his entire career of managing restaurants and managing teams and growing teams. These processes and these strategies are really, really, really simple, basic, and something that you can immediately take and apply. So even if you take one little nugget of wisdom from this show, it can really make a big impact in your restaurant. Or you can take 50. There's just this episode is action packed with so many valuable resources. So hope you enjoy. Welcome to the Restaurant Leadership Podcast, the show where restaurant leaders learn tools, tactics, and habits from the world's greatest operators. I'm your host, Kristen Marvin, with Solutions by Kristen. I've spent the last 2 decades in the restaurant industry and now partner with restaurant owners to develop their leaders and scale their businesses through powerful one-on-one coaching, group coaching, and leadership workshops. This show is complete with episodes around coaching, leadership development, and interviews with powerful industry leaders. You can now engage with me on the show and share topics you'd like to hear about, leadership lessons you want to learn, and any feedback you have. Simply click the link at the top of the show notes and I will give you a shout out on a future episode. Thanks so much for listening, and I look forward to connecting. Running a restaurant is tough. Long hours, staffing challenges, rising costs. Sound familiar? What if I told you there's a smarter way to manage your kitchen, boost your staff's morale, and keep your operations running smoothly? Enter Restaurant Technologies, the ultimate solution for modern kitchen management. Here's how restaurant technologies can transform your business. 1, solve labor challenges. They automate unpleasant tasks like manually handling used cooking oil. They keep your staff safe and happy while promoting a safer, more efficient kitchen. 2, reduce operating costs. They help you save money by optimizing oil usage and eliminating third-party cleaning services with their auto mist technology. Some restaurants save up to $300 per month per location. 3, they help you ensure consistent food quality. Fresh oil means better tasting food every single time. They help you monitor your oil usage remotely with ease. 4, enhance safety. Reduce fire risks and injuries by eliminating the need to handle hot oil. 5, promote sustainability. Join the eco-friendly movement by recycling used oil into biofuel. And 6, maintain a clean kitchen. Imagine no more spills, pests, or messy cleanups. The result? A safer, cleaner, more efficient kitchen that saves you money and keeps your team happy. Ready to see why over 45,000 restaurants, from small independents to large multi-unit concepts, trust Restaurant Technologies? Visit rti-inc.com to learn more. Brett, let's jump in. So let's go back a couple of years to when you first transitioned into Golden Mill, and give listeners a little bit of background real quick on what Golden Mill is and what you guys do.
Yeah, so the Golden Mill, we are a food hall. We have 5 different food vendors in our space. We have merchandise, and we've got about 12,000 square feet in interior, and then a large outdoor space. And we're in Golden, Colorado. It's a really great location. We're along Clear Creek, where everybody comes in tubes and kayaks, and then we overlook the Coors Brewery. So it's a real experiential place, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. You guys
um,
do so much with community. It's just a packed house all the time. Gorgeous rooftop. Great, great food. I mean, you've got some of the best in Denver when it comes to food, and just a killer experience. So,
yeah, it's we've been really lucky to have some great operators in there, and we have a 56 tap self pour beer wall, um, beer, wine, spirits. It's a lot of fun.
yeah,
So
you got some good NA stuff in there too, which
we
I
do,
love.
yeah, we've really focused on that, and it's we've seen that segment grow.
Yeah, I love it. So let's go back to your transition in as director of operations. Would you kind of paint the picture of what Golden Mill operations looked like at that time?
Yeah, so I've got kind of a bit of a convoluted story with Golden Mill in that I was part of the operational team before when it was being built, and then left for a couple of years before we ever got open. That was right in the middle of COVID. There was some uncertainty there, but I left and then came back at the beginning of 2023 in a consulting role. And initially, my approach there and my charge was to come in and identify opportunities. I think that really the Golden Mill is a great success story in that the volume and demand from the day they opened the doors far exceeded what their initial expectations were, which is it's a great problem to have. But I think the first year to 2 years, it was a lot of kind of hold on, get through the day, and then recoup to just get through the next day. It was a little overwhelming. So when I came in a consulting role, I think ownership had recognized that there was opportunity there, that they wanted systems built and a focus on hospitality, and really it was kind of a recognition that we have this amazing thing, but if we're not intentional and if we don't invest in our operations, it could go away, right? Like we could lose this lightning in a bottle that we found. So initially it was coming in and observing, and then presenting my recommendations. At that point, they engaged me to execute on those observations, and then that pretty quickly and naturally led to this DOO role, and that was June of 23. So it was about a 6-7 month process to go from, hey, I'll take a look and tell you what I see, to, hey, kid, can you please take all these things and make them happen,
Yeah,
right?
I love it. I don't know if I told you this, but when I was just out for your guys' retreat, we were all, that last night sitting at the dinner table, that amazing dinner that you had, coordinated for everybody.
Yeah.
And there were stories going around with the ownership team. I don't know if you were listening in or if you were near, but stories going around about those first couple weeks in operation and how crazy that demand was, and how they were like, we have no idea what we were doing. We've never done this before. And so they were talking about like trying to be the bouncers, and like how how much of a catastrophe that was, and then hiring security just to keep up with the flow of people coming in. So I love that. I love that they brought you in
Yeah.
as the expert.
I think they thought they were turning on a garden hose, and it turned out to be a fire hose, right?
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great. Unlock the skills to transform your leadership with the Hospitality Leaders Roadmap. Move from ordinary to extraordinary, packed with practical strategies to lead with confidence and create lasting impact in your restaurant. Visit kristenmarvin.com/audio to download your free audiobook today. So, what were some of those initial opportunities that you identified that needed to happen?
To go, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
there was. I would say, like a lot of things, a lot of it came down to people, right? To accountability, to bringing in the right people, to setting clear expectations, and then to have the systems and leadership team in there that were able to do that as well. I won't go into the weeds with it, but like, for instance, one of the first things I noticed is at the Golden Mill, we have two kind of primary front of house facing positions, right? We have a host, and they're at our host stand checking people in, explaining how the process works. We use RFID cards. So it can be a little confusing to somebody that hasn't been in there before. So their job is to welcome them in, explain how everything works, get them set up to enjoy the experience at the Golden Mill. And then we have what we call beer wall ambassadors. They are along our self-pour wall, and their job is to show people how to use it, recommend beers, and really at the heart of it, it's a way to inject welcoming hospitality into a self-serve model. That's been a focus since before I was there. It's been a goal, but really, how do we inject hospitality into a self-pour model and a self-serve model, so that it doesn't feel transactional, right? We think that hospitality is just as, if not more important in our model as it would be in a full service. So we have these beer wall ambassadors that are there to welcome, show, help, recommend. And when I came in, I noticed one of the first things I noticed is that everybody was just lumped into front of house. And so we might have 10 people scheduled, but nobody was assigned to a position or a location. And it was just kind of disorganized when they walked in. Expectations were difficult there, and accountability was really difficult. My question to the management team at the time is, hey, I noticed that nobody is at the host stand while we have people waiting to be greeted. Whose responsibility is that? Because I see 10 names, but I don't know who is supposed to be up here, right? So just kind of some basics there is, assigning roles and responsibilities, building clear expectations on what a greet is into the training, building a training program. With your background, I'm sure you've seen amazing training programs, and you've seen the training where it's like, hey, this is Tim. He's going to train you for the next 3 days. Just kind of watch what he does and try and do the same thing, right? So, yeah. And we were kind of on that barometer. So shifting to clear, concise training, structured, making sure we're really laying out the expectations and giving our people the support and tools to meet those expectations. So that was a big deal. And then in doing that, it's kind of like a rabbit hole. You look into that and you go, okay, we need training. We need tools to train with. We need systems. What's the best tool out there? We brought in Opus so that we can structure the training there. We've created SOPs. We've built to train the trainers program. We're actually right now in process this year for the first time of doing essentially an application and interview process for trainers. So rather than saying, hey, this person would make a great trainer, let's throw them in there, we're asking our staff to express interest in being part of that, and apply an interview for the position, and then investing in their training as well to do so. So
nice. I'm curious to know why what was important to you about starting with the people component? Because you could have looked at the P&L and started cutting some costs and really dug into the back end of things. But what was it about the people focus that made you want to start there?
Well, I think that there's a few answers to that question. So high level, I would say, I don't think you can ever save your way to success, right? So it's not to say that efficiency and eliminating waste and watching your bottom line isn't important, but I've always been a big believer that if you want to succeed, you've got to really focus on driving top line, and the bottom line comes with that, on kind of a level of the day-to-day operations. I think anything when you look at it, we're a big space that does big volume. It does start with the people, because if people aren't bought in and they're not motivated to really execute, that vision. And yet, when we talk about wanting to provide warm and welcoming hospitality, it's I can only be so many places. The owners can only be so many places. Like if our team isn't bought into that vision, is an extension of that vision and mission, it just doesn't work, right? They need to understand why that's our vision. They need to get it, and they need to feel supported in doing it too, right? There can't be a situation, I think, where our employees, our team, feel that they are separate than leadership. We're all in it together, and they have to be just as bought in. And,
Yeah.
one of the things we talked about early on felt like a big heavy lift, is like what's really, really important to me. And one way to kind of put success in this is I want everybody that works at the Golden Mill to be proud of working at the Golden Mill. To where, I think the way I phrased it early on is I said, when they walk into a different business or something anywhere, when they're talking to somebody, I want them to say, I work at the best place in town to work at. I work at the Golden Mill, and really preach that, versus we've all been around people where they're like, oh yeah, I work here, and and they launch into everything that's wrong with it, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, totally.
yeah.
So what were some of the strategies that you used to get the team bought in? And did you start with leadership first or hourly? What did that look like?
Yeah, I mean, it started with leadership, right? And kind of understanding what their challenges are. When I came in, both as a consultant and then later when that transitioned into a DO, there of course is some trepidation from current employees, right? There's people that are there that are going, what does this mean for me? What's going to change? Who is this person, right? So at the beginning, it's a lot of observing. I think it's understanding where everybody's coming from. So it's one thing to have your vision, to say, hey, this is where we want to be. But it takes time to understand the best way there, and the way there that brings along the team to do that. It's really kind of empathizing and seeking to understand where some of these breakdowns have occurred. It's showing that you're willing to invest in your people, and then frankly, I mean, it's kind of making expectations clear at a certain point, because some people aren't going to come along,
right?
And being able to have those conversations and make those decisions too is important, right? If you're trying to create change, I think there is an obligation to give everybody an opportunity to get on board and be part of that change. But if people aren't willing to get on board, then the ship still needs to leave the harbor, right? Like,
Yeah.
Focusing. If the idea is that you're afraid to ruffle any feathers, I think you wind up never being able to move or grow or do anything. So,
Yeah.
It's a people business. It's bringing along the people that want to come along, and supporting them, and really demonstrating that you're invested in their success and development as well, right? And there's a lot of ways to do that. And then it's from that point on really investing in the people. I'll give you another example. I sat in on one of the interviews for an hourly employee right out of the gate, and it was like the interview was about 98% just telling this person kind of how the Golden Mill worked and what it meant for them. I don't know that one question was asked of this individual, right? So we weren't seeking to we weren't investing in finding the right people that fits for that. Coincidentally, that person got hired and they wound up being a great employee. So we got lucky there, but
we can edit that out. No, I'm just kidding.
It was one of those things where it's, I really believe that you have to invest in that process on finding the right people, and then in bringing them in and making sure that they understand the culture and the mission, and investing in their training again is huge.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. You're just giving me a moment of insight that I haven't really thought about. Just thinking about the interview process as a moment to invest in somebody, right?
Absolutely.
there's so many, you're so right I've been through a lot of interviews where people have just talked at me, or I've brought a resume to an interview and somebody looked at it and said, "What is this?" And I'm like, I'm trying to tell you about me and what experience I could bring to the table. And I think it's so important to have a good balance of letting somebody know what the expectations are, but then also really getting to know them and making sure that they're a great cultural fit. And like you mentioned, that they match the mission and the vision that you have for the organization. That's looking at that as an initial investment is really, really special. And I would challenge anybody listening to this to go back to their interview process and really ask yourself, like, are we investing in people out of the gate? Because it is such an important first impression about how that employee is going to be treated and developed in and invested in down the road with the organization. So kudos to you for looking at that.
Absolutely. I'd even take it a step further, Kristen, and like defining what will make that person successful in the role. So like we were, one of the things that our team was really looking at early on, I say, hey, what do you look for in an employee? When you're sitting down and you're looking at a resume, and one of the biggest things that initially I was being told was, hey, experience. I want somebody that's got a ton of experience. Well, when you define what we're looking for in a role, I mean, our beer wall ambassadors, they're along a beer wall, and the main thing they're doing is engaging and talking to people and making them feel welcome, right? Well, 20 years of bartending experience doesn't necessarily translate to that. Like one of my most hospitable people that I have on the beer wall is a football coach, right? He's just a big gregarious guy. I can teach him what the different beers are and how it works. Like, that is not difficult. What is a very difficult process, almost impossible, is to take an introvert that doesn't enjoy speaking to people and say, hey, you're going to be on this wall and I need you to talk to 1,000 people today, right? Like,
yeah.
So really defining what makes somebody successful in that role. And it doesn't mean that this 20-year bartender that's really focused on like craft cocktails and mixology is a bad person or a bad employee. It's just saying that I don't know that person's going to be successful in our role or happy and satisfied, right? So,
yeah.
It's as much finding people that will be happy and satisfied in the role as it is finding people that we believe can do it, right?
Yeah, and I think when you say we want to hire somebody with experience, I think it certainly depends on the role that they're playing, but that's also a very old school way of thinking. Back in the early 2000s, there were a plethora of people out there, right? You used to post jobs and get hundreds and hundreds of applications of people that had been in the industry for a long time. And that's just not the case these days. And so people, if they're hanging on to that, it's going to be a huge roadblock and be very challenging for them to find people, which is just going to take longer to fill those spots. So again, like adaptability is per position, is I think what you're getting at here is like looking at the role and then finding the person that matches that role, not trying to find somebody who's already done that job.
100%. And if the market is, and I would say a lot of people in the market are looking at that. They're looking for people experienced, right? A lot of us were taught growing up, coming up in this industry, you look and how many years serving experience do they have? How many years experience they have here? If you can get past that and interview for people that are passionate and are hospitable and enjoy making people happy, it gives you a competitive advantage in hiring in the market because your pool has just increased dramatically, right? And then you just have to focus and invest in teaching those people the specifics of the job. But that just takes me right back to, I would rather teach somebody the technical specifics of a job that already gets how to make people happy than try and take somebody and teach them how to engage people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Hey there, podcast friends. I hope you're enjoying these impactful conversations and leadership insights I'm bringing you each week. Before we dive back into today's episode, I want to take a moment and reach out and ask a small favor that would go a long way in supporting the show. If you've been loving the content I'm providing, please take a moment to leave a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Not only does it make my day, but it also plays a pivotal role in helping the show grow. Your reviews boost my visibility, attract new listeners, and encourage exciting guests to join me on the mic. So, if you want to be part of my show's growth journey, hit that review button and let me know what you think. Thanks a million for being awesome listeners. How are you identifying hospitality in the interview process with somebody?
A lot of it is just focusing on authenticity, and I would say, like, if we're talking challenges there, right? One of the biggest challenge in interviewing for hospitality, I think, is some of us get overly focused on how just quick and easy they talk to people. And what you wind up missing is people that get nervous in interviews, right? Like I've had some really amazing employees that are super engaging and really good people, provide amazing hospitality, that frees up in interviews a little bit, right? I had a friend tell me one time, or a mentor one time, they're like, people that interview really well interview a lot. That's not necessarily a good thing, right? So kind of digging through there and having the patience with people, making them comfortable so you can see kind of who they are, giving them a safe space to open up and be themselves in that interview. It's a skill for sure, and balancing that with also kind of digging in, because I'm not a huge fan of just a pure conversational interview, right? Like I do think you need to dig a little bit and kind of find out what their core values are, but do so in a way that you can kind of see glimpses of who they are when they're comfortable. You know?
Mm-hmm. So let's go back to again, when you were kind of transitioning in, did you go in with a plan of like, I'm going to observe for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and then I'm going to start implementing? Or did you just kind of know when that moment was where you needed to stop observing and start jumping into action? What did that look like?
Yeah, it was, I think initially we were on a 60-day plan, right? So it was, hey, I'm going to observe for 60 days. And by observe, I don't mean I'm standing in the corner with a notepad taking notes. I went through a training program at each position. I said, hey, I'm a new porter. What's the process, right? Who do I train with? What does training look like? Put me on dish. I want to learn how a dishwasher is trained. I want to learn how a beer wall ambassador is trained. So definitely hands-on, but not expressing opinions, right? It was a lot of one-on-one. So interviewing all the managers, sitting down with them, getting them comfortable, sitting down with just different people on the hourly team, sitting down with our licensees and finding out what the pain points for them were. It was a process of learning and understanding, and then putting together this proposal, right? And I apologize. I don't remember exactly. I think we were a little ahead of schedule. I don't think it took 60 full days to get there to the observational piece. But we essentially, it led to a presentation with a proposal. And I came at it with the ownership and said, here are my recommendations. And here's what I would do if I were in your shoe. If I was the sole owner of the Golden Mill, here's what I would do, and here's how I would prioritize these initiatives. And then my approach was, and if you'd like, this can be it. I can hand this off to you, and you can run with this, or I can help you execute and implement these. And thankfully, they said, we'd love for you to implement and execute these. And
yeah.
I think we spent, there was probably an initial 30 to 60 days where I was focused solely on that. And then from a consultant standpoint, you get into some kind of weird areas where I'm like, hey, this isn't really in my scope of work, but it feels weird to say, not my problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those conflicts, I think we understood on both sides. So pretty quickly it led to, hey, let's just get you on board and go, right?
Got it. Mm-hmm.
And so it was, it was. I feel fortunate. We've got a great ownership team. I think we all, everybody brings kind of different things to the table, but everybody's aligned in what the ultimate goals and mission are. So
Hmm.
it always, you even when even when everybody's in a room and you might disagree on the pathway there, you're never doubting that everybody has the same goal in mind, right?
Yeah. Yeah. How did you, out of all those initiatives that you identified, how did you know how to prioritize those?
It's part of it is one starting with people, right? So it's kind of like building a house, right? You don't you're not worried about the paint on the walls before you poured the foundation. So it's like, hey, we need a great team that's invested, understands our mission, and feels supported so that we can utilize this team to start driving these initiatives, right? So you focus on building the tools that are going to help you kind of build the rest of it. And then also, it's not a perfect science because as we all know in this industry, it moves fast, and you're trying to grab opportunities. So I can't say, hey, we're in 3 years we're going to provide great hospitality, right? Like you go, hey, we need to focus on building this foundation, but we also have to address these immediate concerns, so that we're not losing ground in terms of our guests and demand and top line. So
Hmm.
it's a little bit of a balancing act, and you have to be able to one, move fast, and you have to be able to focus on multiple things. And honestly, part of it is really, I think, being vulnerable and transparent with your team and going, we're going to try a bunch of things, and not all of them are going to work. And we want your feedback, and we're listening to you. We want to know what's working and what isn't. But you're going to have to know this is an imperfect kind of process to get where we want to go. Right? We're
Yeah.
not going to bat 1,000 on every single thing we do, but what we will be committed to doing is always hearing feedback, reevaluating, and pivoting when we need to. We're not going to just say, "Hey, here's the plan," and no matter what, we're going forward. Right?
Yeah, totally. Did you share that initial plan with the entire leadership team?
We did, yeah, we did. We went in with ownership. So there's a presentation to ownership, and then the next process was sitting down with the leadership team and saying, our management team, and saying, hey, here's our observation, here's what we're going to do. I probably learned, not probably, I learned some lessons in doing that. Um, I think if my advice to somebody, if somebody was in that same position, I underestimated or maybe overestimated um, that management team's understanding of what my role was and what this was. So, I'm going in expecting this management team to be really excited about some of these changes, and I think there was an initial trepidation because they're going, uh-oh, how does this impact me, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
And I think there's a bit in that situation. I was probably, if I was to go back, I would be a little more delicate with that, to not make them feel like, hey, these opportunities are a reflection of the job that you've done.
totally.
I think I underestimated the impact of that, right? So
Yeah, it's tough, right? You go in, you're excited, you see opportunities, you know you can do the job, you know what the end result's going to be and what the impact is, but it's really difficult to get a younger team to get on the same page when they have not experienced that before.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely, and yeah, I think it's natural in that situation for somebody to go, uh-oh, how does this impact my role?
yeah,
Particularly if
totally.
they're aware that they're not performing well, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah,
so let's talk a little bit about leadership. So you approached everybody, you let them know about the vision, you gave them opportunities to buy in. Did they buy in? What was that experience like? Did they push back? Were they all on board?
there was pushback initially. we had, it was a small management team at the time, right? So we had kind of three salaried managers at that time. Full transparency, none of those three people are still with the company. That I think we got some buy-in. We had to part ways with the general manager at one point, and I think that shook the other two. There was a relationship there. Um, all in all, in that, I feel like we gave everybody a great chance to get on board, and ultimately, I think it wasn't the spot for them, right? Whether it was the change was something that they weren't into, whether it was our vision, they weren't able to buy into, but we didn't get there. Now during that process, we brought on two more salaried managers. They're both kicking ass. I mean, they're doing great. And since then, we've now expanded we've got a 5-person manager team that we're now going into. We're getting close to turning on a year of continuity with those people. So yeah, we feel really good about where we are today, and the people we've been able to bring on, and honestly, looking back, like it took a little while to build, but it was worth the investment. And there were times, Kristen, I know you've been there, where like we're sitting there, we're interviewing for a position, we're in like month 3 of interviewing for that position. I've invested, 100 and something hours, and you start to feel like, man, are we ever going to find this person? You start questioning, am I being too picky here? Am I over filtering? Are my expectations not, are they too big to not match the market?
Yeah.
But ultimately, you always, when you do find that right person, all that gets dispelled. We always have to keep learning that lesson.
Totally.
Right? But like when you find it, you're like, oh yeah, this is why. This is why I waited, and this is why I trusted my gut and held fast to my principles here. Right.
Yeah. I mean, when we were together for your leadership retreat last year, it was all about being a world-class business and offering world-class hospitality. And that comes with a lot of systems and a lot of accountability, like you said, and a lot of expectations and some pressure there, right? To identify opportunities and to keep learning and keep growing all the time, which can be really fun or can seem really daunting and exhausting to people, right?
Absolutely.
Hi, everybody. We're taking a quick break to offer you an exciting opportunity. If you're a restaurant owner or manager looking to enhance your leadership skills, I invite you to join my 12-day leadership challenge. In just 12 days, you'll receive a guided packet with actionable strategies to transform your leadership in less than 5 minutes a day. Join the challenge and the community and grab your copy at kristenmarvin.com/12 days. Now let's get back to the show. It's difficult to, I'm just commend you for, doing the work that you've done over the last couple of years, having 100% management turnover. That's not the goal when you go in, right? You and I worked together for a long time. Like, I know how much you invest in people and how you really, truly believe in what you do. And when you present a vision to somebody, there's that hope and goal that everybody buys in, that everybody shares that same excitement too, right? And it's difficult because, I wonder how much time did you give each person to buy in, or until you made the decision that it just wasn't going to work, or did they make that decision for you?
Yeah, no, I mean, a little of both, right? So like it was, we essentially fully turned the management team that was in place about a year in, right? Over the course of that year, talking about the retreat, I had a conversation with somebody about the retreat that you did, right? And they were asking like, hey, how'd that go? Was it worth it? And one of the questions they asked on the what was worth it is what they found out. They said, so, 2 of the 4 of your managers were gone a month after the retreat. Do you feel that was a waste of resources to have them go through that retreat? And my response to them, I was like, actually, I think it was a amazing use of resources because it it really showed me and made me feel confident that, no matter what we invest in these people, this just isn't the place for them, right? It made it abundantly clear. And it made it clear to the rest of the management team, right? The two that are doing so well today, I think it showed them, it made it abundantly clear, like there's a separation here, right? There's the people that are like, let's go, let's have a really great business, let's be part of something bigger than ourselves, let's invest in our people, and like let's take pride in what we do. And then there were people that are like, I'm not here for this, right? So
Mm.
it was a real aha moment where I think anybody that really cares about their people, you wrestle and struggle with having to move somebody along, right? To turn somebody. It's if you're quick and easy with that, then I think my dad told me one time, he's like, firing somebody should be the hardest thing you ever do, and if when it becomes easy, maybe do something else, right?
Yeah.
Like, like so like that retreat in that moment really it really kind of unraveled that struggle for us, where we go, okay, we now know, right? Like we feel really confident that this just isn't the place for these people, and we're able to make that decision confidently without any kind of regret or second guessing if it was the right move. So um,
Yeah. I mean,
and,
it's interesting, right? Because with the retreats that we've done, it organically comes up, right? Like you have the pain points, we design the content, we know exactly what the agenda is going to be for the 2 to 4 days that you're spending with that team, but you don't know until you get everybody in the room and then you're delivering that content. You don't know who's going to be engaged. You don't know who's going to be bought in, and you see it. It's different to have like one meeting and see who's speaking up and who's excited and where the body language is and what questions come up during the conversation and then what action is taken after that. But to see that over a 2 or 3 day span and then watch that person consistently show up in a certain way is really, really telling. I mean, that's a very special moment that is really difficult to duplicate, I think, in the day-to-day chaos, controlled chaos of the restaurant industry.
that's a great point, right? Like you can observe your team for a lot of times, it feels like minutes at a time in the chaos of the day to day, but putting them in a room for 6 to 8 hours for 2 or 3 straight days, it's a little harder to hide in that, right? Like,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. And especially, I mean, it's not like you're grilling them for 3 days. There's great meals and lots of,
Nope.
great food and fun and laughs and activities and all that. So focused on people. You've talked a little bit about the interview process. You've talked about the training. You've talked about coaching, the one-on-ones, the observations. Fast forward now 2 years.
Yeah.
Paint a picture of what a day in the life of Golden Mill looks like now.
Yeah. So, essentially we bolstered our management team. We've really, our kind of goal this year is to invest in having our higher level managers, giving them the bandwidth and opportunity to work on the business as well as in it, and kind of utilizing those resources. We have these great resources, and great people that are passionate and talented. So giving them time and space to add to the business and build the framework of the business and continue to drive it forward, in a way that's hard to do if you're the sole person on the floor the entirety of your week. But being able to trust them is great. Being able to give a project and say, hey, here's our desired outcome, here's our objective. I'm here to support you, but you go run with that. That's something that we have today that we didn't have a year ago, right? Was that ability. So, and that's where it kind of exponentializes that growth and that drive forward with the business, right? So now instead of me being the sole driver of it and then having to delegate tasks, I can actually delegate projects and objectives, right?
Nice.
And that's been huge. We've built a lot of systems and brought in a lot of systems as well, right? We changed our payroll company. We brought in Opus. We've really utilized some of the tools we already had, but expanded what we can do. GoTab, our POS, 7shifts is our scheduling platform. We've brought in a lot we brought in Triple Seat for events, kind of doing these things that allows people to do more with their time, spend less time just doing tasks and more time driving programs, right? So really, really investing in those tools. And then I say investing in those tools, investing in utilizing those tools to their maximum capability is big too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've been guilty of this plenty of times in my career where you bring something in, you roll it out, and you don't have time to come back to it, and you're utilizing 20% of what it does.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example that just happened the other day where we're talking about like different audits and tasks. We're trying to get a tool to come in to where, say, our managers can go through our bathrooms in the morning, check off, hey, this is done, this is done, this is done, this is done. And my first inclination was like, hey, I know this iAuditor tool and we can use this. But then you look and you're like, wait, 7shifts, which we already use and is already on everybody's phone, has the same functionality, so really digging into the tools you already have and making sure you're utilizing them to their capability, I think is a big thing that's easy to lose sight of, right? You start using it for a very narrow functionality and never come back to see all this cool stuff it can do. So
yeah, 100%. That's great.
Yeah.
Great tip for anybody looking at your tech. Think about everything you want it to do first, and then jump in.
I think you had a recommendation, Kristen, the other day, and I felt this. I was like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, not spreading yourself so thin with tech. Like, not, I think if you have 10 different logins and use blah, 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 like, people just get lost in that. And then, and you're not using it. So really trying to get the most out of fewer solutions versus, hey, everything that's cool and fuzzy, I'm going to put it all in here, and then nobody's really using it, right?
Totally. That's great. How has all the work that you've done over the last couple of years, how has it translated to the hospitality in the space, and how has it translated to the bottom line?
So hospitality, our culture today, and it's funny because it happens over a period of time, right? So the gains aren't always day to day. It's like it's like watching a kid grow, right? Like you don't every day go, hey, you're a 1/100th of an inch taller, but after a year and a half, you're like, when did you get this tall? Like when did this happen, right? It feels a little like that. So when we really look back and talk about some of the opportunities that we had 2 years ago, and you're able to kind of visualize that versus where we are today, I think we have a team that is absolutely committed to that hospitality. They're happy. They're engaged. It feels good to walk in the door, right? Like from my standpoint, it feels good to walk in the door. I think our owners have mentioned that. I think we've done away with most of the us versus them and the entitlement and all that stuff that goes with that, to where we're all on the same team. We're all collaborating and everybody understands, hey, we win together and we lose together, and we're here to support everybody in the building and vice versa, right? And we need that support. So I think we've made a ton of inroads and a ton of progress with that hospitality and that culture. We just give you like an idea. We just posted a job for a training and hospitality manager, right? It's an hourly manager position that comes in, and it's somebody that can really help drive and execute our training program that we've built. And I just looked today, and I've got, I think, 4 so far in one day. I've got 4 internal candidates that have applied for this job. Year and a half ago, I don't think we would have seen that at all, right?
Wow.
So that's a big win to see that engagement and that want and desire to grow and grow into opportunities with this company. And from a bottom line standpoint, we've seen, we've continued to see year over year growth. Hopefully this year we will as well. I think everybody's a little bit, what's going to happen this year with everything.
Yeah.
But we saw good growth first few weeks in January. We've been kind of weather hobbled these last couple of weeks, so we'll see. We're fairly weather dependent, so it's tough to predict the future when it's 5 degrees outside, right? Like that tells more of a weather story than a growth story. But we're confident that we can continue to do that, and then the bottom line has been great. We've seen continued growth there, and then I think one thing that I feel really fortunate to be a part of this company is our owners are really, they have a very long-term vision for our space. And so a lot of that bottom line gets translated back into investment, back into the space and the people. So, every year we have more tools, we have more ability to continue to grow that top line, which just translates to more bottom line, right? So, whenever we're talking about capital expenditures, or we're talking about, should we add this or do this, it basically, the conversation gets centered around, does this improve the guest experience? Does this allow us to build a bigger sense of community? Does it, does this drive our mission? And if it does, let's make it happen, right? So,
yeah, totally. Well, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I was just going to say, your story is extraordinary. I'm grateful to be a part of it, and obviously know you and call you a friend for many, many years, and call you when I need something, and vice versa. But, you came in with a really strong strategy, and you were super organized about the way that you felt like the initiatives needed to be executed, but also really exhibit a ton of flexibility and adaptability, and knowing when things need to pivot, right? And you are so good at the long-term strategy, and that takes a lot of time and energy, right? To coach and to continue to get people to buy in, and look for the right people, and make sure they're aligned with the core values. And culture is really difficult to define, and it's difficult to build, and it takes time. So I, thank you so much. Like, congratulations, by the way. And I hope you celebrate those wins as you've done with your team. I saw your 2024 rap sheet of wins, and it's just absolutely mind blowing and incredible. And thank you for sharing your process today with the listeners too. I think the things that you're talking about are not revolutionary. It's about the basics, and it's about the people, and it's about setting clear expectations and being able to hold them accountable to those, and constantly looking for ways to grow the team internally and externally. And you've got a great roadmap to show people how to do it. So great job.
Yeah. Well, and thank you for being a part of it, Kristen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right. That's going to do it for us. Brett, again, thanks for your time and being here. And please, listeners, share this episode with anybody that you think could benefit from all the amazing nuggets of wisdom that Brett shared with us today. We will talk to you all very soon.